Welcome back to the Teacher's AI Cafe. I'm Kane, a teacher and a parent who wants AI to give us back our time. I share practical classroom tested AI strategies to cut down your workload, improve your feedback, and reduce stress so you can get your evenings back and be more present with your friends and family. No jargon, just actionable steps. Grab your mug. Now let's get going. I'd like to welcome you back today. Today's got a very special guest. So there's Sri. He's a head of department for a science school out in country WA in a place called Karratha. We'll get him to introduce himself and tell you a bit about his context, his school and what it's a bit different from your metropolitan schools, and also the excitement they've had in the last day or so. Welcome.
Thanks, Kane. I look forward to having this chat with you. I've listened to a list of your interviews and podcasts, so thanks for having me.
No, it's good to have you here. The more people talking about it, the better it is for all of us. Yes. Yeah. So what's Karratha like? One of your ex-colleagues who used to be in Karratha, she's moved on now. What's it been like there the last couple of days?
If you check the news or social media, we've had a cyclone, but this is not the first time that it happened. It's the ongoing due to the place where we're located. We're very safe. Of course, there were certain areas like Exmouth and Carnarvon, which are like remote country towns in the northwest coming down to Perth that have been affected. So we hope they're safe. Karratha is, as for most of the viewers of all your followers, is a mining town. So you do have a lot of oil projects as well, gas projects, as well as iron ore, lithium projects that are taking place there. And we've got two schools, secondary schools. We've got a state school as well as a private school.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm the head of science at Karratha Senior High School.
Cool. Excellent. And yes, my students are very excited because apparently the cyclone for people overseas is like a hurricane or a typhoon. It's just we call them cyclones in the southern hemisphere, being my HAS teacher. And they're all very excited about a cyclone coming to Perth, potentially the first time in 36 years apparently, but I don't remember one 36 years ago on memory. Trying to think how old I was. Maybe I wasn't in WA then, but yeah, they're very excited. Hopefully no one loses their roofs or anything because we're not really built for cyclones down here. Excellent. So there's your context. So I guess starting off, before we get into AI, what do you like in terms of actual technology in general, in terms of your teaching context?
I think it is part of your job as a teacher. Not saying that you've got to embed it 100%. We all know that ICT is a general capability as listed in schools, and you would know that as well.
Yes.
And so the idea behind that is we're now moving into a digital age. And I know from a science perspective, even I can give a simple example. In electricity, for instance, we used to have the analog ammeters and voltmeters, but now when you look at new science shops and all that, sell equipment, you've now got digital versions of them. Even thermometers, you used to have the mercury minimum maximum thermometers, and now you've got the digital one. So I think as we progress, there's always I wouldn't push. People are now moving into the digital. Gone are the days where we used to have the watches which were analog, like you got the watches as well. All these trends show there is that digital versions coming out as well as in education. But I guess from science, I know that technology has played a huge part. You will see that there's a lot of programs that we use. I can speak from the high school, certain programs that the students use through subscriptions, for example. Some of them are free, like, for example, PhET simulation. And that was a very interesting time. It's just that you mentioned about digital technologies, for instance. When we had COVID, right, about 2020 to 2022, we had the lockdown. So there were schools that were shut down for that time. Or if you had COVID, you had to isolate for 5 days. Particularly during that critical time, a lot of parents were told to encourage to get their kids to stay at home. And with science, we were affected. Science is about running experiments. You've got to be at a physical surrounding, experiment. So I know we had an activity for research. What we did was give a bit of context in science. You've got 3 types of assessments. You've got the test, which is in class. You've got an investigation where you do a scientific lab. You present your reports and your findings, you have your research. Now, because we were locked down, so we were not able to do an investigation. So we converted that into using a tool called PhET simulation. This was the generating was low, using electricity, what's the relationship between voltage, current, resistance. We made that into an investigation and gave it to students to run this at home, to work through it. And I think that was our way of saying, hey, look, yes, there are investigations compromised because of COVID, but we can use technology properly, responsibly to incorporate science concepts. There was a need for that. And I know we've used other programs like Socrative. So this was a way of giving out tests. So
Yes.
having it in class, you generate the questions, you put your answers. And the good thing about, especially for multiple choice and short answer questions, you got instant feedback.
Yes. Yeah.
So reflecting back 6 years on, I think that when we had COVID, it gives staff an opportunity to try different digital tools to embed in their learning. Of course, this is a typical example. We used to have professional learning, which used to be face-to-face, and then we started using WebEx, where we Teams as well. In fact, still gave opportunities for teachers to use technologies. Coming back to your question, I think it is important, especially in science, that we've got to embed technologies. Not 100%, but it is one of your tools. I like to look at it as a toolbox you've got, and one tool about teaching pedagogies in the classroom, another tool about methods of assessments that you give, and another tool, which is technologies. You've got another sub-tool under technologies, which is AI.
Yes. Yeah. Coming in there, I guess being country as well, WebEx is a savior for you, especially getting professional development. Thinking about the COVID, I know the school I know the science teachers there, and Carl was one of them. They recorded all their experiments and then obviously shared those videos, which was handy for the students to actually see them in practice. Just curious, going back to COVID, did that lesson of using IC remain? Or a lot of my experiences was a lot of teachers just went, as soon as COVID was over, the remote teaching was over, they just went back to theirs, I guess. There's nothing wrong with that, just their pen and paper. We don't need to do it anymore. Or was there a conscious effort? Were you ahead of the department at the time? Did you try and continue that sort of practice within your department there?
So it's very similar to what you said as well, that once back to school, all those learning tools, some of them like Socrative and all of teachers, when they can see me, we can pen and paper, let's get back to it. However, with certain subjects, particularly with data, because it's all about practice and constant study and reading, few of the teachers who taught use that like Socrative. There are tools that still continue, like we use Style, and there's also one which is for data, year 11s and year 12, which is Revise Online, which is like an online portal where students are given a set of questions, they answer, and they also time, like they could do it in 3 hours to reflect the actual interface. Feedback is given instantly after they attempt those questions. So to answer your questions with the extension, the 8-hour courses, those tools are still used. I take, for example, a literacy numeracy class. And some of the students may not have access to a laptop at home, for instance. You've got to go back to them and then paper, chalk and tool. So Karratha is one school which is very diverse. We've got programs, 8-hour, for example. You've got extension, mainstream classes. You've got students who have literacy numeracy, so they're in the LNP class. Then you've also got students academic risk. So in a nutshell, these are students who say, for example, miss the attendance. Research shows when you miss your attendance, you're prone not to do well, you're prone to fail. So therefore, there's a class for that. And then you've also got the big picture program, which is for students where the classroom's not for them. So they work on a project that they like and present their portfolio, which now a lot of universities are accepting that as an entry pathway. So it varies from the context that you're teaching. Of course, we've got like some schools use Connect. We use Connect, put information there, where there's content, PowerPoints, worksheets. You're in the careers counseling or careers pathway there. When a lot of students go on, say, TAFE courses or work placements for a week, it's their job to catch up on their works. What do? They use Connect or Sector or Compass to look at their information in there.
So it's definitely, yes. So let's get,
Once COVID finished, it was back to normal. All those tools slowly reduced.
Yes.
Now it's pushing back again.
They do in a different form. tack over. So I guess in front, how did you get into AI and when did you start using it?
So it was very interesting because, and I think you would know this as well, like we talk about AI, which it's now like a buzzword,
Yes.
I guess,
Yep.
what, 2020 onwards. But it's very interesting. There were other examples of AI that will be used, but I'm looking at it from chess because I play chess.
Yes.
He was, I think, 96, 97 at that time. The best chess player or number one chess player was Gary Kasparov.
Yeah.
He was playing against IBM Deep, and at that time, Kasparov was dominating everyone till he played this computer. And initially, there was always this hype that, look, Kasparov's going to win. He's hands down, he's super fast. He would play multiple moves per second, played all these strategies until he defeated. And I think that was when people talked about that game.
Yeah, I remember the conversation. I remember that because Deep Blue early on didn't understand the idea of sacrifice and losing pieces, and the human would make those adjustments. Once you learned that, he could beat him. But I remember it was on Jeopardy. I was amazed when it went on. It beat the best person ever at Jeopardy. But that's really just, I guess, logic is obviously the question. If you've got a big enough database or reference to it, you can then generate those answers. It's not really thinking, and AI itself really doesn't think as such. But I know early stuff, I used to do a lot of my students, my old school, machine learning, where we would build machine learning. And often in history, I teach them how to build apps in Swift, and we'll build an app where they, say, identify the different types of sources. So usually did Greek, Egyptian, and Roman, and they could basically write this app and they take a picture of it and it'll tell them what civilization that mosaic or picture or whatever it came from. And that was just a simple, massive database of all these images, and we'd load them up into their model and they would test it and then improve it over time. And they had build some fish, identifying fish sort of thing. And so the idea is machine learning's already been there. And November 2022, these large language models came into existence, which are a different format, but it was the same basic ideas as natural progression through.
Complete the word machine learning a lot.
Yes.
So that's nice that you mentioned about that as well. But it was very interesting as we progressed. This one, I think it was like before 2020, people were talking about AI.
Yes.
I had a conversation with one of the staff who also came in your shows, Matthews.
Okay.
A teacher at our school.
Oh, is he from there? Okay, before he went down to Albany, yep.
Moving to Albany as well. And he's the one, technically, and I should give him credit for it. And I'll tell you what you showed too. When we started the coding club, this is in 2016, 2017.
Yes.
Zach started it with myself. And he was saying that down the line, AI is going to take over. And he mentioned something very interesting. And you might know this as well. There were two computers that will be programmed to design a task. And he was designed by a software engineer, but he noticed that there was something that was wrong because these computers were actually talking to each other in a language.
Yes.
The software engineer was like, what's going on? What the hell's going on? So he had to destroy it. And he was saying that, look, down the line, this is what's going to happen. And fast forward today, we're using AI. But what I think, to me, the catalyst, because there's one thing, you can have an awareness of what AI is. You can talk about data centers, you've got Gemini, you've got Perplexity, you've got ChatGPT 4, 5, 6, how many versions are going to come? But it's how you're going to use that. What is it that you use?
Yes.
You want to use it in your assessments. I think the trigger point for me was when ChatGPT came out by Sam Altman, the beginning of 2023, that's when people were talking. I remember the kids were in school and he was in my class. Amazing because one of the students was like, you know what? I can actually use AI to do a research assessment, give it to you, and you won't even know.
Yes.
And I said, look, I've marked you one before. So I know whether you've used it by looking at your level, the level of language used. So I can tell whether you use AI or not. But that was something that got me, gave me a bit of an awareness. Noticed universities were also doing a revamp on assessments. And the idea behind that was to avoid closed questions, assessments, because AI can come up with the answer. Because the thing with closed-ended assessments, there's one answer for it or a list of correct answers, which you can use AI. So the idea was to say, okay, let's come up with research which fosters open-ended question thinking, which create that the humans can only do. AI can give a list of answers there
Yes.
for you to think, because you can look at it and think, well, you use here. It's an open-ended question. I'm looking at your thought. Yes. What we wanted to do was, yes, we give students a research to do, but then we back it up with the validation. Because previously what used to happen is we give you a research, this is probably 20%, and we just mark your research. We give you the marking point and there's a rest. But what we've started to do now is to say, hey, look, here's a research component, right? We're going to give you an A+ validation given to you in test conditions. Yeah. And as you progress, you look at science, for example, I can speak for science. Yeah. I don't know about the other learning areas, but as you progress from year 7 to year 12, percentage of your validation increases. So they're actually testing the understanding of your concept, not your ability to research, because not everyone can do it. But one thing that the team's done, and I give credit to the curriculum leaders, is that they know that, okay, look, here's your research, and now there's various AI detector tools. So the idea now is when you want to submit this research, can you put it through this tool and it gives you a percentage?
Yeah, they don't work. They don't work. And I know I did a demo I mentioned when Peter, a couple of years back in 2023, I got something that was 100% written by AI and said it was good human writing. And I think someone put up that an AI detector was the beginning of some famous text. I can't remember, it was a book. And it said 100% AI written. But it's a book from back in this, I can't remember what the book was, very famous text. And it looked at that and said, oh, it's so well written, obviously it must be AI. That's what the detector was trying to say. And it really just doesn't work.
Into what you were saying as well, because I wanted to be to see how we could use this. I remember with SCARS, what happens is you have what's known as a curriculum audit.
Yes.
So the idea is they'll ask you for your assessment outcomes and the program outlines and to see if it matches what's the standards. So coming back to the point where there are some flaws there, whereas we're trying to say, okay, how about before we send it for it to be audited, if staff could put it through a program to see if it meets the criteria. So for me, it makes my life easy because I can go around having to look at it and check with the time that I could use for other stuff. I can use it for that, but I noticed there were certain things that were not being picked up.
Yes.
And same thing as well. That's the next question I know you were going to ask as well, is like, say, hey, how are you going to use it in your planning? Because we've tried that. Because we've got science, the new version 9 steps come out.
Yes.
And say, hey, can we see if we can use AI to design year 7 curriculum program where it says, what's your weekly program? Your learning intentions, success criteria. So I remember I say, can you come up with a program which with learning intentions, success criteria and resources? We came up with that and then tried to compare the SCARS requirements.
Yes.
There were some errors there. I think you're right in that detectives don't do 100% of a job, but we're working towards that part. But I think one thing we've done is to avoid students dependent on AI is that we've inflated the validation mark where they get to feed the assessments.
Yes, a lot of schools gone down that route. And obviously if they prepare well, even using AI or not, if they prepare well, they will do well in the validation. So it's because they put the work and the effort in and made their brain work a little bit going through. So entry, you covered some of the points. How are you using in practice? I guess interested from a head of department role, and obviously, how do you use it within your team? How do you actually have discussions around AI in your weekly meetings, or is it more of an informal discussion and people saying, look, I've done this, and then sharing it within the department?
So I think the idea was, we know that students use AI.
Yeah.
We've had these meetings with curriculum leaders.
I was thinking more yourself as the teachers. How are you organizing as a head of department? Are you actively encouraging and developing your staff to use AI, or are you leaving it up to individual staff to develop their own skills or approaches with it?
Here is, I've told it that, look, just remember that not everything on AI is accurate, so don't fully on it. It can be used as a tool to help you. I'm not telling you not to. I know I use AI things. I remember, was it 2025 when Trump had signed off the big, beautiful bill? And I know Elon Musk was unhappy with that. And I was is this beautiful bill? What's it about? And obviously I use it to look into
Yes.
that. So for information, knowledge development, I get them to use it.
Yes.
But at the same time, I let them know there are some flaws, particularly in the academic
Yes.
perspective areas. And now the department of education so far has said, hey, we're going to use this tool for now. They haven't endorsed any tool.
No, they've got their one coming, which I don't think if you sign up now, you can sign up to be part of the trials. It's on icons.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So you've got it.
Mm.
But one thing that led out of AI was a discussion that I had with the team, and it's work in progress, was the referencing style. Because yes, we know that if you use AI, that's not really a legit referencing style. We want to go back to the old school. So if you're looking at your research, are we going to use APA? Are we going to use Harvard? How do we educate students on using references in there? We don't want a student to say, hey, this information here, I got it from AI. Because then you realize that's not really the right form. For one student to go, yeah, these are my references. I actually use Harvard style, this use APA style. And how we approach that is we looked at referencing from upper school. What is it that we use in upper school?
Yes.
We have put reference in upper school, and how can we backward map to lower school there? But in order to do that, because it's one thing you can educate students with referencing, but the other important thing is those students even know what referencing is. They may have heard it, but what is referencing? How do we educate? So we're in the process, right? I'm trying to find out what works contextually for science. I know that we thought, okay, can we do something that is old school? But the problem is, say, for example, HAS may use APA, but I'm not sure if that's for science.
Yes.
Science may use Harvard, but we don't know if English uses Harvard. So I'm in the process of trying to work with other learning areas to say, hey, this is what we're doing. And what would be a good referencing to do that? And the need for that is for students to say, AI is a tool,
Yes.
but you can't always depend on it for your research.
How are you finding, because I obviously have my students do, and I've got those lower ability. And the issue I've got at the moment, I'm trying to get around, they've got to reference their work, where they get the content. But now when they're hopping into Google, they're just copying down the AI summary at the very top. They're not even going into web pages anymore.
We do the same thing. And I remember when one of the teachers went when they search something, they quickly go to the first search that comes under AI mode. And the first search, then look at it. Whereas you and I would look at, okay, let's look at something else.
Yes.
There are some biases as well. The search, going to the whole thing of left hook and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The search that comes in, the first one is the real one. You want to look at the
Correct.
searches. And I know I tell students as well, don't look at the first search that comes in. Think of it like, would you believe this? Is this really permission? But one other thing I also say is, imagine a family member is suffering from a disease, or obviously you need to go to a doctor, no doubt about it, but you look at extra reading. And if this happened to your family, are you going to be looking at someone who's just written a vlog about it or written a blog about it? And are you going to believe what this, or are you going to believe what the medical journal talks about?
Exactly, yeah.
But you're right. Because they look at the first thing and they go, sir, can I put that one?
No. They do anyway when you're not looking at it. They'll write it down. And then I say, where's your reference? I said, you can't reference Google. Google's not a reference. It's not a website.
We face the same riches.
Oh, yes, we do anyway. Students are lazy. They try and get away with the first thing with them. Okay. Do you allow students to use AI any capacity within the school? Obviously, I'll say they'll be using it at home in one form or another. Do you allow them, obviously, being a public school, we don't allow them to log in or anything, but do your students actually bring up a chat and just use it in guest modes type of arrangement? Have you noticed? Or do you allow that or give them that flexibility, or you just say nothing at all?
I don't use that, but I know some teachers for educational purposes, for the sake of they're happy to use it. I know a student was like trying to make ice cream and I was trying to come up with a creative way at the lowest cost and use AI to come up with that model, particularly for some investigations which are student driven, where the student has to come up with the materials without the teacher giving it to the technicians. The students come up with the materials,
Yes.
gives it to the staff, teacher, the teacher gives it to the technician. They have used it for that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's okay because it's educational. As long as the teacher is able to validate and say, yep, that's good. That's all good. And I know this, we had one staff who was kind enough to say, hey, look, this is my password. It's a new tool called Choki AI.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you look into it and see? So I'm happy to encourage staff to use that as well. But I do say your reference point should be what is in SCARS.
Yes.
And I know with lowest, there could be like you could be off by plus or minus 5%. But I know with beta, you never know. You've got some exactly what SCARS are.
Yes. Yes.
They went doing your audit. Because what you don't want is when you have, say, for example, consensus moderation, and they notice that for you didn't teach that properly according to SCARS and you use something else, then you get paid for that. So
Yes. Plus, they will get validated with an external exam. So
that's right.
that's funny because I know people have websites. Computer science is one of my areas, so I often do marketing for that. And often I'll get, obviously you get the random questions, but you see these questions are wrong, but across all the different schools, these same answers for certain questions. And apparently it was that all the students found this one website that had all this information on it. Supposedly it was accurate, but it wasn't very good. So all these students who were using it, they obviously shared each other. Oh, go to this website. This person's put this information up. There's a few around that. So I know computer science, but yeah, it wasn't good answers, but they're all across all these different exams across the state. They're all using this answer key that this person develops because
It's interesting. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but it's how easily they can think, oh, that's the right answer, as opposed to obviously what we want within our programs as specified by SCARS. So.
I had someone who sent me an email and he basically runs this, it's an AI generated data website question bank for students.
Yes.
So the idea is the questions are similar to the ETO style exams, because a lot of times we have all these textbooks and textbooks give you the background information, the theories and all that, but the questions are probably more secret. The only way you can get to do well and get an A or a B is by going through exams.
Yes.
You've got various publications, the Creel Lens from academic associates that we use as well. So this was a website, and I've scheduled a meeting with them. It's with maths, physics, and chemistry. It basically says, okay, these are the questions. Say for chemistry, you've got organic chemistry. Under organic chemistry, you've got topics, and say manufacture of soaps, for example. And it has a list of questions where it says, okay, do you want to do practice more or exam? And it was very interesting. The questions were high standard. And if you look at the marking, it even marks you. And the marking key was similar to the ATA exam marking, the language and that. So what I've done is I've asked the teachers to give some feedback to see whether this is good. So there are attempts being made to help students with revision techniques with the SCARS questions.
Yeah, I've been playing one of my second daughter's in year 12 now. So I've gone through, I'm going to try for human biology, and I basically got all the public available scans, got all the previous exams, and I put all the marking key in. So I put in this ChatGPT. The idea is she can ask for a multiple choice or a short answer, whatever, to section. And then the idea is it generates up basically all the exams, it'll just generate such and such question. It'll give me and I've told her to give me the year it comes out of. And then the idea is you can answer it, and then it'll refer to the marking key with that. I've still got to play with it. It doesn't quite exactly work. Like the multiple choices, I had to do those separately because it would just give me the question without the multiple choice answers in the different options and things like that. But yeah, the idea, I'm trying to build this sort of way she can revise, just randomly throwing up those sort of random question sort exams. Because what I say to her is, all my students, I said, pick one exam question, a previous exam a day. Just do it. You do that over the whole year, doing all previous. Odds on, there's only so many variations in every subject you can get for questions. So you're bound to see some variation of that when you get to the exam at the end of the year. But I'm trying to build one in a custom GPT to do that. So the idea is she can log on and go to it. It's a hit and miss at the moment. But yeah, it's something. I'll see if I can get it.
Because it's biology is content rich.
Yes.
like say mathematics, chemistry, and physics. They are complex concepts. You would get, say, an answer which is correct. Like
Yes.
math says 1 + 1 is 2. You can't say, oh, in this context is 1.9, in that context is 2. It's the safety with physics concept, unless you're doing relativity, for example, where you can explain from different dimensions.
Yes.
Is it because like with human bio, because it's content rich, you want extended response, so there's different ways of answering it.
Yes.
And then I think the AI tool retains the framework, bones and skeleton. Then what varies is the muscle layers, so different sort of answers that come out of it. Maybe that's why, but I've seen that for maths, physics, and it tools work well because it's just one straight on.
Yes. Like computer science would be good because this is the answer. It's very factual or factual based. Whereas I go do one for history, it's a bit more subjective, but there's still model answers. You put model answers in there. Yeah, she does modern history as well. So that one, yeah. But you can still put all the model answers and things that people write in there. You get the basics. But she uses at the moment, like she'll do a draft for, say, modern history and then run against the marking key and ask for gaps and things, and which is quite good, the thing then, because I might say, oh, no, you've missed this major concept idea of this piece of history. And then you go, oh, yeah, okay, I'll go back and redo my draft. So it's a way of getting feedback, informal feedback, because obviously as teachers, we aren't always available.
And it's good that you actually, because I know a lot of students, one thing that they struggle with is they can read and it stays there. And then when you are able to write it down to it, because at the end of the day, when you're writing down, that your brain's actively involved.
Yes.
And when you're writing it, you're in that space, and it also helps you, especially when you're doing essays, to prepare you for the exam. So it's a good approach that you're using where you're getting them to write, or now send it to them, because they're getting the work and then they're getting them to say, what can they do better? And then they go back to rewrite to make it better.
Yeah. That's why I say AI would be good. I think that's how they use it in the private sector sort of thing. Private, obviously they got access to it. I guess in terms of thinking a bit wide, I guess the impact and the equity of it, obviously you're at a very mixed socioeconomic school, I guess from experiences, AI has the potential to support equity and education was touched on just that then. Or do you think it could disadvantage certain groups of students or schools in general? What impact do you think, at least in the short term, or maybe even the long term, do you think is a positive or a negative impact that can come out of it?
I think, the first part you want to ask is that, okay, is AI if you want to have access to AI, you're looking at good internet, right? If there's good internet provided, you're able to access it to your phone or your laptop. Like you said, in certain areas where probably some families may not be able to afford a laptop to use AI, for instance, they may struggle. They could be also, the other one is, are they educated enough and knowledgeable enough to use it?
Yeah.
So I feel that some schools may be disadvantaged with that. That, okay, look, some of the parents probably have not even used a laptop before. How are you going to let kids understand?
Yeah.
And I know there are some situations where parents are encouraging the children jump onto the laptop and focus and look into that and use it there. So to answer your question, I feel as of now, areas that have low socioeconomic impacts, areas where, say, internet is something that is limited, they may struggle with that. Even if you could say internet is accessible, there's probably an index, which is like an internet index to see what's the percentage of households that have internet, even if that high is high, but it's also knowing how to use it.
Yeah.
But I feel in the long it'll reduce because people are talking about it. There's a buzz about it. I feel that with, say, state governments and federal governments working on educating people on it, I think we will reduce. And I feel also it depends on the school's priority and policy. So, for example, we have these network meetings where there may be one school where ICT is one of their priorities and business plans. For those schools, you might see they may invest in laptops or tablets or iPads. Yeah. And so for them, they would be like not a push, but they would be like an advocate for digital technologies and ICT and AI. But there may be another school where, say, their literacy university has been low, maybe math, so they want to focus on literacy university as their priority. They're going to be looking at maybe ICTs out of the window. It's now online.
It's similar to my school. We're very low literacy, well, beyond. So the focus is around literacy, pen and paper, doing the basics and building those skills and knowledge up. But also find for lower socioeconomic students to high performing ones, I think I found the experience that do well with AI, you got a really good content knowledge around your subject. And you also got to have good literacy. And I find my weaker students really don't understand or put the time and effort into actually developing that content knowledge. I say within a school context, of course, but the idea is where more academic students will actually put the time in, learn the content. Therefore, they get more benefit out of, say, using AI than a student that doesn't. And I guess trying to get that message through to them that AI does things, but without good knowledge, you don't know what questions to ask, and you don't know how to really assess what comes back. And as teachers, I say, it's teacher expertise, as you said earlier. You got to look and say, hold on, that's not right. I know that's wrong, and make your adjustments from there.
And I think it's also very simple because I remember I had a student who asked a teacher, and I was just right there, during recess, and we're doing our duty.
Yeah.
I was rolling around, and what student went to one of my teachers and said, hey, don't you use AI for your classes? And this teacher was like, what do I need to use AI to help you with your topics? And he goes, I know my topics, so I don't need AI. You know? But then he corrected the students. Yep, if it comes to content knowledge, I know how to use. I don't need AI because I've been teaching it for a long time. I've got that experience. However, if I want to use it as an alternative way, as a question bank resource to look at which tools, questions and all that, yes, I use it for that. So you're right. Everyone would use it for content. And I think a good teacher will know whether that's the right one or not. You're in control of, how to use it, but it's whether it's the right information for the students. That's the question. I think as a teacher, you should be able to differentiate and say that's right or not.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I think there's more of the conversations getting around for it. Because I saw the article was in the West, they got the classmate AI, which the department's going out, came from our Facebook feed. But every single comment underneath it was in the teacher's feed was, no, just invest more in EAs. We don't need the AI. So that was we just want more EAs in the classroom, or obviously that more physical support, more than an AI system provided by the time, which was quite interesting. I think almost 100% of every single comment that's what they wanted.
Yeah.
This was
I've got a question for you. Like, for example, because obviously you've used AI, you're fully knowledgeable about it, but you're also applying it. But let's say, for example, you know how every school has a priority. You've got NAPLAN scores, you've got WEES attainment scores, graduation rates, attendance, like these are benchmarks. I guess my question to you would be, how would you educate staff, give support to staff AI? Because you will notice that with your podcast that you may be speaking to different teachers, different heads of department. You might see one department probably high in the AI scale because they're using it, what ways out of it, and you got others that are learning. But what would you do in a situation where you want to educate staff AI and offer some support? What approach would it be? Have you done that or?
Yes, I do. I run a weekly drop-in, so teachers at recess, they can come along and do it. Usually, and I run PDs and things, so different approaches. Normally, when I run the sales, look, I'm going to, at the drop-in, well, we might cover this topic, but usually I say, look, bring a problem to me that you're trying to solve. So the idea is we want to bring in the problem. They look, so whatever the case may be, differentiation was one of them. They did, how do we do it? Okay. So I put the text in, I show them how you could differentiate the text very quickly. And that was a win. That's all they needed. I find most teachers, at least my school is not a high technology school whatsoever. So a lot of teachers have been there a while. They don't really use tech. They have computer labs. And for most of them, it's research and typing. That's it. So the idea is getting them started on anything is better than doing nothing. And I say the things, you just want to do the small things and do them repeatedly and do them over and over again. So once people do that with AI, whatever the context is, they'll then just start to experiment and try more things themselves. Generating lists. What was another one? How to make a close activity. Put a text in, turn it into a close activity. So basically just knowing how to upload a document, add it, which is quite simple. You can just drag and drop it in there. Turn that into a close activity and just check it. So the stuff I do at schools is really simple stuff. And it gets students, so as people first start using PowerPoint, they start with basics, and over time they learn the features, and they eventually get to a point where they're very happy with what the technology does for them, and they'll stop teaching themselves at that point. So I see AI, people will find different levels. Some people will use it a lot. Some people will use it just a basic level, and they'll be very happy with that. And that will vary across the school and across between different schools as well. So some schools will be right into it. Some schools will be doing the basics, and some schools will be ignoring and just letting the teachers do whatever they want. And that's, I guess, my context is more the case. I'm going to run PD. I got the form the other day. We're going to big military school. I'll put up to run a PD. I last did in 2023. Last time we ran it was at 2024. It was a while ago now. The idea is I'll run these, and I haven't thought what I'm going to do yet, but once again, I'll start off with the basics in one of these workshops, depending on who my audience is. Get the basics right, play with it, learn it, and then you can build on top of that. And you just do the basics over and over again, but that's everything in teaching. Teaching itself is, what was the quote? It's really simple, but it's really hard to do. The concepts and theories of teaching is really simple, isn't it? But it's really hard to do in practice. It's like getting wealthy is very simple, but it's hard to do. Getting wealthy is easy. You just spend less, invest the difference than what you earn, and over time you'll get very wealthy with compound interest. But behavioural-wise, it's very hard to do. That's why we're not all rich. So I see education like that. So I always try and keep it really simple and show the basics. And usually I focus on a problem they want to solve and look, and I might say, you just do it this way, or yes, we can do it with AI, because AI isn't the solution for everything. What I found personally is when I was making worksheets now is I actually spend a lot of time with AI because I'm now trying to make more complex things than what I did before. So when I first started using AI, I'd do simple worksheets and things like that. But now I'm doing whole booklets and putting pictures in and generating images. So I end up with probably a faster version, but it's still taking me just as long as when I was making manually, because now I'm doing so many different prompts and iterations and adjustments to it and bringing new resources in and adjusting it, that the amount of time I use an AI is very quick for, say, a 3 or 4 page work booklet, for example. It can take me 2 or 3 hours. But I know when I'm writing and the answers and everything, you'll end up with a more polished version. But like I'm going through lots of iterations and changing it each time and adjusting it, and then manually adjusting and then putting it back through for maybe change one section or another till I get the response I want. And that was the thing I did the other day. My last YouTube video, the last podcast on Wednesday is a YouTube version where I just did simple tasks on Claude and ChatGPT. So Claude will do complete worksheets and things. Yeah, Anthropic. So that's very different. So in my area of history, ChatGPT is far better content knowledge and details than Claude. You'll get much richer answers out of it. Claude will actually develop all your worksheets, your answers and structures. It does that really beautifully. I don't like the styling of it, that's what I was saying. But the structure and everything, you could almost copy and paste it if you're desperate and run with it straight away. Whereas ChatGPT, you really got to copy and paste it, move it into Canva or PowerPoint or something else to actually build a finished product between the two of them. Different approaches, but I find history-wise, ChatGPT is much better than Claude overall. But Claude will do much better design if you'd put a straight prompt in there. It'll do complete worksheets, lines for you. You can export it to a PDF or PowerPoint or HTML and then hand it out if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Like I said,
I wanted to know who's used Claude as an AI tool. So you're the first. So thanks.
Yeah, I paid for it first month in because everyone's jumping because of the issue around the US Defense Department. Claude refused to get involved. So there's
ChatGPT. These guys work together and then they split off.
Yeah, so that's a fine. Claude in history. I don't know about other subjects, and that's the thing you don't know till you get on. You can do. I find Claude runs out of tokens much quicker, so I'll often hit the limits of the top model. Whereas on my ChatGPT, I can pretty much work non-stop. I rarely ever hit the amount I use it daily limit. Whereas in Claude, I actually do as well. And Claude takes longer, but like I said, ends up with a more visual, I guess, almost what it thinks is the finished product. Which ChatGPT goes straight away, it's giving me text, it's giving me information. I'm assessing or I'm waiting for Claude to do it.
Yeah. Interesting.
And that was no prompts. Yeah. It was just a resource on this, though. Interesting. I asked them both to do a closed activity, and ChatGPT did it, but Claude made something but never put a close activity in the worksheets made for me, which I thought, and then I had to go back and ask it, and then it made one for me. But I had to make a crossword and things. So dingbacks, quizzes, things. It was like a whole random questions I got off a Facebook group. And I said, okay, how do I do these? And I just ran them live.
Lovely. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yes, I got to do one with Gemini now. And what's the other one? Yeah, do a Gemini, maybe all three of us. Yeah. And so they're not perfect, but like I said, they're a tool and they're a work in progress. And they're the smartest they've ever been. And they're also going to be the dumbest they're ever going to be. Where it goes, and you think how much has changed in the 2 and a bit years, how much more we can do with it, and what it'll be like in, I don't know, another 2 years, who knows. Yeah. My big question is, what's it going to do to jobs? Because no one can say. And as a career person, that's really hard. And also with my own kids coming through. But I think what will happen is unions and things will restrict AI and in, let's say, public sector, certain industries, they'll start putting that in agreement that there's not job losses and things, or there's limits to it. And he's talking about banks talking about getting rid of 18 or 20% of their workforce, for example. There's reports coming because they're going to replace it with AI. So whether we start seeing unions and say, no, you can't replace all these people with AI, there's limits around it, but who knows?
That's true. Yeah. There will be legal ramifications. That's right.
Yes. They're talking about permanently 10% unemployment which is major recession time, but that might be the new norm, normal economy. So but no one actually knows and how quick that'll happen. And Elon Musk says we're all going to have all this free time. We won't need to work. Robots will do anything. But they've been promising that since I think the Industrial Revolution, that we'll have all this leisure time. The robots, the machines would do it all, but it doesn't seem to work out that way.
That's what they'll say, like the only machine that's been going on is the elevator, and that's the
or the escalator, so you don't have to go up and down. Yes. Yeah, cool. I guess we'll wrap it up there. So I guess advice and reflection of yourself with, if you had people, new teachers at your school and things, what advice would you give to a teacher new to AI? Where to start, or what would you suggest they actually do based on your experiences so far?
I think my advice for teachers who want to use AI is, look, they're welcome to use it. Just remember that at the end of the day, you are the content provider. So the buck stops with you. Because what you don't want them to do is, the moment you say, hey, use AI for your research, the chance is that they're going to use that and not listen to you. So you want to be that person who ends up policing the use of AI. And to do that, you need to show that you're the content person. You're the person who's able to deliver this more. Because what you don't want is, if you say, hey, use AI for everything, you don't want the student to say, hey, teacher just tells it to do this, doesn't explain things properly. So why do we even need to have him over as a teacher in the classroom? Mm-hmm. So as someone to broaden your knowledge, you're more than welcome to use it, to have an idea. You can use it, but at the end of the day, it stops with you. And you should be the one should direct them to say which one's a good search, which one's a bad search. And you can use it now to a lot of things, like you said, for your personal reasons, for history or other things, but it shouldn't determine your teaching, because at the end of the day, your core business is teaching, your pedagogies that you're going to be using, and whether you're using, say, explicit instruction or cooperative learning strategies, those will still be there, because the research shows that this sort of techniques of teaching help students use information, all that. So far, AI, and I tell that to the staff as well, AI right now can give you content and knowledge, but it really doesn't show how to deliver it to your students. No. You are the one that's going to be doing that. So down the line, it's not going to do this.
It can give you teaching strategies, and a couple of times I've used as, you get content, modify this to this teaching strategy. So you might want to change this to comprehension, change it to a jigsaw type activity. It can do things like that very quickly. But like I said, it's you as a teacher deciding that's the strategy I want to use. I can use AI to help maybe quickly modify an existing resource to a new format. What I will find interesting, I guess you'll find, I don't know how many grads you get, because I know they're incorporating AI in the teacher graduate program. Educating, interesting, because they're trying to encourage them to use it. Excuse me. So it'll be interesting what the new grads will come in, what their views will be, and what sort of skills and knowledge. I don't know what they do at the university. I'm going to try and contact a few and maybe have them have a chat what they're doing with teachers through the university, because I know ECU and I know Murdoch and things, they're incorporating it in. and using it as a tool.
Yes.
I know UWA put a notice out, my daughter's there now, that no AI whatsoever. They don't want any shape and form, which is good and bad. So it'd be different universities, different approaches.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. We'll see what happens next year, maybe next year, the year after, cohort of grads that come out and enter into the school system.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. It's interesting what you said about having it in the grad mods as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
Oh, no, look, I think it was a pleasure having a chat with you. What I wanted to do was also to learn from you. So it's not just me blabbering, because sometimes you could get bored of people hearing me all the time. And I wanted to ask some questions. I know I prepared some list of questions to ask you, which I did.
Yes.
So
But if you ever want to do just anything else, you can always just flick them through with email anyway. We've got those. Because, like I said, I like getting, it's nice to have someone to talk to and discuss different ideas, because just listening to me gets boring as well. Because as teachers, we learn from each other. It's not just one person sitting on a microphone in their garage, which I do at the moment. It's good. Thank you very much for coming on. This should go up next Wednesday. I do it, and I'll send you the link and listen to it. But it was really insightful, very helpful. And maybe we could check in a year or so time and we'll see how things have changed, and whether you've got some grads that like AI superheroes coming into your department. I don't know if you get many grads in Karratha. I imagine they do. Go country has always dropped up there. So
that's right.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Steve.
All right.
It's a pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you.